Hello. No musical intros. Haha, wow. Oh, hold on. That's not the level it should be. Hello, hello, hello. Hello. Okay. Well, that's something. But no musical intros. That's what we're not having this year, which is a shame because I do love playing the old music, and my guitar is going right now because it's so sad. After a significant amount of musing talk, that's another unfortunate joke that I've laid in at the last moment there. Yeah, we're carrying on today with Jim Ghedi. Jim Ghedi. So this Wasteland album, we heard Old Stones last time, earlier in last year. Oh yeah, Happy New Year. We heard Schiefenfeld. Yeah, so expecting more of the same. These low bass notes, maybe with a specific open tuning, but not necessarily. A lot of resonant relationships, though. It's as in sympathetic resonances between the strings. Everything feels very in tune with each other. Rather than like an open something like that. Anyway, we've gone over that. We're expecting some more of that. We're expecting some kind of powerful, emotive performances, varied dynamics, quite a acoustic ensemble, but with an electrified guitar, and yeah, big variation in how hard people are playing, how soft people are playing. Probably quite a sparse arrangement. Let's see if this one follows in that vein. What will become of England? Gosh, I thought I set it up well, but then I didn't. Well, different. No guitar so far, but still in the same low kind of range. This time D rather than it was in C last time. We've got this kind of D area of resonance at the moment, centered on D, and we've got fifths and octaves, so really simple power chord basically. You know, you can imagine it in a punk song or a metal song if played differently, but here we just have these held notes, held for long times, two violins or two violin strings being double stopped with those on and just being held with that scratchy violin sound, along with a low note that can't possibly be on the violin, must be on a cello probably, could be on a double bass I suppose, doesn't quite sound as thick as we would expect from that. Yeah, no chance you're tuning a viola or violin down there, so that's what we must assume here. Two violins or one violin double stopping, and a cello holding these long notes. Now we did get a slight variation in that fifth. We got this moment where it dipped down for a moment to that sharpened fourth. So potentially, if things want to be as straightforward as they could be, we're in Lydian mode territory. Like that. Lydian has this sort of whoa feeling to me. It's like, oh my goodness, look around you, what do you see? Everything is very beautiful, everything is easy to look at. wonderful, everything is wonderful, yes. But maybe this will be a little different, because we use that note for some scary stuff too. Let's see how it goes. There's actually a note in between, maybe on a viola, maybe on our cello as well, but it's that low D and it goes goes up a little. And what's notable about this one in comparison to the previous one is not everything is really in tune very well with each other. These things which quite easily can be played in like very, very resonant, full-blooded connection with each other, they're just grating against each other in a really, well, unconventional way, really. For such a basic, straightforward chord, it's got a lot of grit and uncomfortability in how the notes sit together. Okay, so there's the acoustic guitar come in. This kind of thing. Yeah, could be dadgad tuning actually. But that gives us a little bit of melody and sort of tells us we're in actually not D major or D Lydian, but D minor. It uses the 2 there, the flat 3. So before we've got that sharpened 4. I think quickly we get the normal 4 rather than the sharpened 4. And we had the flat 2 briefly. So those were just sort of well, passing notes from the held resonances from those string players. They were just passing or mutating somewhere slightly different before coming straight back. So our root really is then this D minor kind of thing that's been given to us by the guitar, which has no time for that kind of mutation. Something like yeah, an ending there on a B flat and a D. Very classical feeling. Yeah. It's not exactly the same kind of voice leading that you would expect in classical music, but it feels phrased like you might get by a classical guitarist. So there's some interest there. This B flat is not part of this normal D chord. It's got a B flat which sort of aggresses against this A. They're very close to each other, and so their harmonics grate against each other, and your ear doesn't easily hear them together. Yeah, so there's a little bit of dissonance going between the guitar and the backing chord. That said, the guitar has more of a percussive hit, and so it fades away quite quickly into that more resonant, continuous sound behind it. There was that low D. Did you hear that? It went bam, bam. So we definitely got that lower string tuned to a D, lower than normal for a guitar, but not wholly unexpected. There we get sort of the same phrase. Might be, yeah. And then we go to a different chord, which is something like that, G, which doesn't have the same aggression as the B flat against that A. Sorry, that A. But still there's a little bit of aggression. Ooh, they're pretty close together, so again, the frequencies don't sit easily together. Yeah, boom. That's actually the bass note in that second part of the phrase. Kind of got two phrases going on here. One's and then we have a so two different phrases, moving up, and then higher phrase. It sort of comes down instead. It does go up at the end, so they're not a perfect symmetry of each other. They also have that da 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 rhythm as well, which I sort of associate with sort of British Grenadiers, kind of. Even though it's not quite that, it's slightly more jaunty. Da 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 da. In another world, it would be the same as that Plesio as well, but that's not how it feels here. So this is a repeat of our first phrase, I think. So we've kind of gone A, B, A here, but the B starts the same, and then it just goes to a different chord to finish. So really, really similar phrases. And then this third one. Okay, so the third one, by the way, sorry for the washing machine. It is on. Naught I can do about that right now. I'm not gonna stop a cycle for you guys. Yes, the fourth phrase then breaks the cycle. We still get as a melodic segment, but it occurs in a different place. Let's hear it again. Okay, so there's our second one. Actually, yes, so we get that G power chord with the against it, like we said. Go back to D. There's our third one. Yeah. What I didn't notice before is that actually from that we actually have a kind of we have a lower phrase going on. So we get one higher phrase, sort of sounds like da da da, but it's not, because we get da da. We get both these notes together, and then we get both of them again, and then that falls to the F. So it's da 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 da, and then that higher one jumps up, and then we go to whatever we end with. Yeah, so there we start, instead of with da 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 da, it starts with da 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 da. And there's where we get it. So normally we would get that sort of in the third quarter. 1, 2. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, and then 4 is this, which is, it's maybe more like 5 overall, 5 quarters, 5 fifths. But the main flowing part of the melody has 1, 2, 3, 4 bits to it, and yeah, here we get, so that's 1 and then 2, so it comes earlier in the segments. Yeah, and then we get some cool sliding figures. That would be a good one. That's not quite what it is, but anyway, whatever it is, it's lovely. I'm not going to go too deep into it. Very interesting guitar playing, classical-esque phrases, but then these slides, you wouldn't get those kinds of things in classical. So we've got this old world kind of feel, but a slightly more rugged version, which I think, yeah, this is all about. Yeah, and a little bit of a wait while we get ready for the verse. those lower strings. Yeah, lovely. Okay, and then yeah, first verse presumably.
But we'll become Movington if things go on this way.
So the melody is following almost entirely the guitar. It's doing that, but instead of going da 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 da, just stops on that note. I think. Let's just hear it one more time in case I'm wrong. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Also, just worth noting in that moment of sort of calm there between the there's this whistle harmonic that comes out from one of the violins, which is really satisfying to hear, just filling that moment of silence. Lovely. Anyway.
We'll become Movington if things go on this way.
Yeah. Things go on this way. He almost sounds like he's singing with a very closed mouth. Which reminds me of John Martin. Are you guys familiar with John Martin? You got really singing almost through no mouth opening at all, and it gives this jawry sound. This sort of, I associate it with like dog characters, that kind of thing. But it's, you know, it's just actual singing.
There's many 1,000 working men starving deep.
Yeah, so there we go back to the B flat chord, which we didn't do the first time, but the melody notes da, 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 goes down to the G. So the guitar doesn't match what it used to do, but the voice does, and so we get this kind of G minor-y chord instead of G power chord, and instead of the more B flat major, or major 7 with that A in there as well. Instead of that kind of sound, we have a slightly more romantic kind of first inversion minor chord. Lovely.
He cannot find employment.
Notice also that the backing, the really deep down cello especially, not really here anymore. Much more focused on the voice and the guitar. There are a few extra violins floating around, but those long held ones much less present.
For greatest children cry.
Yeah, so they're really just painting either side, these two violins. It could be a cello and a violin, I suppose. But yeah, they're in the two different ears, and they're just coming in the silences. It's lovely.
Hundreds of his children know in their grave.
Yeah, so same fourth phrase there. No. No.
And hundreds of his children know in their grave.
No, very resolutely on the beat in that bit, which is a little less like the previous parts, isn't it? Where we had this ba da 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 rhythm. It's da, more final for the final one of the four, I guess. And then we have probably a bit of a wait before the next thing that comes. Yeah, where those violins come back in. Again with the A all the way up there, bending it down, or sliding the finger slightly back on the string, and then moving it back up. Yeah, very sort of kneading kind of sound. It's not in key, that note, so it feels a little uncomfortable, a little scary. I think it's often used as a scary note. really like sad as well. Really lovely violin playing there. Like a lot of double stops, and I can't do this on guitar, but so it's like you're holding one string. That could be a one, yeah. Open D string on the violin, while the other is where your fingers are, and you're playing both of those in the same bow with the going on underneath. And yeah, very sort of folksy style, where you're going for some like double stops, what is it? Something like that. And they're sometimes there, and then they disappear, and there's a bit of a hammer on as well. A grace note at the beginning, if you like. Sometimes would be referred to as a Scotch snap. There's a chance that might be a slightly different type of figure, but that's what the kind of feel is. Very quick note change, so that it's almost like it's an accident rather than right. Anyway, carrying on. Sorry. Also, the violin is playing the melody at the same time as the guitar is doing it down there. The violin's doing it up here. Okay, but we've got... Oh, is it actually that one that's double stopped? Why not? Let's have a listen. That's that scary note again. Yeah, it is. It's the higher string. So violins are tuned in fifths. They have this G string, they have a D string, they have an A string, and they have a high E string. And here we're getting that A, while we're getting on the lower string the fingers. So slightly harder to play. So you have to reach your fingers over, I suppose. It seems unlikely that they would double stop it the other way around, but you know, there's a chance that could be wrong. But yeah, really nice anyway. How those sound, because they're both resonating so similarly to each other. You don't get that kind of violin playing in many other contexts than this. Yeah, there are some extra notes in there. Something like that, extra notes in the guitar part, keeping everything sort of more metrical here. Yeah. Okay, so actually, it sounds like there's a rogue F in that G, actually. So it's like we get a fight, not just between that D power chord, which is not so here at the moment, but also it's like there's a low F in that power chord, which gives a fight between the F and the G. So whenever that comes, it never quite feels as settled as the other chords that have come. It's an interesting choice. Also, yeah, we're getting fun production here. The guitar is really loud, and I think over compressed. So we get these kind of times where it wants to burst out and sound really impressive in the mix, but it's just been compressed to a point where that blowout just hits a barrier and sounds a little artificial in a strange way. A little bit of percussion creeping in. We can also hear that cello now as well. Down on the low C. That's the first time we've heard that low C, isn't it? And it's for that fourth melody part, which makes sense. We've had that over the D normally, because that's as far as the guitar goes down, I think. But it does make sense over the C. Yeah, bang, bang. not really creeping in that drum there. That's very, very loud, and the cymbal as well, nice to hear. So we're expanding, getting bigger, as songs tend to do. Yeah, there's even a bit of a blowout that comes after that initial hit. The initial hit of a guitar is full of harmonics, which tend to fade away, and as they're fading away, the compressor doesn't have quite as much to do, and so it's letting through this wall of bass. At least this is how I interpret it. My production understanding is not always spot on, but that's what I interpret as going on here. It's kind of going. Second verse. Yeah, so different words are treated differently, and it provides a very rich experience where we have still with a clear E sound to it, but then more, which is just like withheld. It's almost like there's a reticence in Jim Ghedi, the performer, to actually say some of these words, or an anger that he means he has to say these things through gritted teeth. I don't know, I think it's really fun. It's really passionate and a little bit scary.
They will not lend a hand to help disturbing.
I want to draw your attention to a noise that I'm not certain of the provenance. The provenance of which I am not certain of. The provenance. Hang on. The provenance of which I am not certain. I think. Of the provenance of which I am not certain. I don't know. You can't end with a preposition. If you can't work out the sentence without ending with a proposition, end with a preposition. Okay, time to stop doing English. Listen to this strange sound in the right earphone. Not here, but it comes in, I think, in the second part of this verse. Let's hear it.
Song of money plenty, but still the crave for more.
Okay, violins, fine. What's that? It's this kind of. It's not much like that. It's much more electrified than that. It sounds like a synth, really, and it's just creeping through with these little grainy bits of sound. Yeah, so those lovely swells of the strings there. So we get the final chord of the guitar, and it keeps it quiet while bursts in. Really good. But then, yeah, also this noise in this high frequency range. Strange, isn't it?
You like a dog and on you cast the frown. That is the way holding on working.
The violin coming in to double the melody first at the same pitch. That's the way you live. And when it gets down to here, it goes up the octave. It's slightly different that time.
That is the way holding on working.
No, it was the same. Still with those grace notes there. Just, yeah, again, more texture. It's more like playerly, if you like. It feels more deliberate and exciting.
That is the way holding on
Okay, so there, instead of getting a new verse or a new instrumental like we got the first time, we got a repeat of the fourth part of the verse, almost acting like a double chorus then there. And you know how often we get that as the second version of the material. The chorus would be repeated the second time, when it wasn't the first time. So that's kind of what's happening here, only it doesn't really have the feel of a chorus. It really feels like the ending, and we've just had to state the ending again. By the way, guys, this is the ending. But it can't be the ending because we've got a minute and a half left. We've got a crazy thing going on in the higher range there in the left hemisphere, in the left speaker, which is this kind of A power chord being played across maybe 3 violin strings, while we've got something much more about the sorry, did I say A power chord there? Oh no, it is. It's an A power chord. Good. While we've got this D power chord down here, so we've got this strange relationship with that E, which is not in the D one, so it's a bit weird. This kind of thing. Yeah. Look at that. Oh. So it feels a little on edge, and especially because that's by itself in this really high range, it feels, ooh, what's that? We're doing a lot with texture here on a much more fine level than in a lot of music. It's subtle additions, subtle swells, and subtle changes in pitch, which make a huge difference here. That said, maybe if it was produced slightly better, we would get a more emotive hit at things like this. But I do love how up against the wall, up against the compressor this stuff is. Yeah, bringing in this higher range really, with these beautiful thirds from those 2 violins. Well, we have that low rumble from the guitar and the cello underneath, and the drum as well. It's just like a tom, isn't it? Really deep sounding. It might even be a more traditional drum instrument, like a bodhrán or something like that. It's just got this feel to it. We've only heard one cymbal otherwise, so we're definitely not caring too much about the drummer being a classic drum kit show-off kind of person. It's much more about the atmosphere and the feel of the thing. Yeah, so different material altogether with these descending chords, the D to the C, and then the B flat. To go to the A minor blues and go back to the C. We have a little bit of contradiction with those thirds up at the top, but they both walk pretty similarly down there. Really sad sounding thing. This is our sort of Andalusian cadence used in a lot of flamenco music. Jack and everything like that. So it's similar to that lament bass that we've talked about from time to time. It just doesn't quite go the same way. So maybe there's a little hope for England, something maybe. Yeah, so because things are pushing so hard, or maybe just because of some idiosyncrasies with the production, we have this scratchy, high frequency stuff, as well as the beautiful notes being held by these two violins. We have this scratchiness in the middle as well, which, well, it adds to the texture, adds to the uncomfortability in a certain way, the emotion, the sadness, the passion, all that stuff. This is now our 3rd time through this. And the drums have got almost oppressively loud. Boom, boom, boom. Not adding too much, I would say maybe adding slightly too much, but they boom, 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 have just this simplistic rhythm on top of a more moving guitar part, which is almost clouded by everything else going on. clouded out even. And those top ones really don't have much rhythm going on. They're just little flurries when they're about to change note, basically. And then in that last one, we take that top A and we move it up, and the F and we move it up. Nice, lovely, lovely, you know, slight change, but very powerful. On that D, but again we have that aggression with that E in the higher violin. It's so strange and it sounds so, you know, out of step with everything. And yeah, something is deliberately happening in the production now that's making it more bitty and more distorted. Strange. Ah, okay. It's actually spelling out the D, the A and the E there, so actually that's the open strings of the violin, isn't it? So someone has been going slowly across the open strings, and that's why it's done. Maybe there's some more reasons, but yeah, it's a very, I guess, basic, straightforward way of playing the violin, and a kind of unusually, a very unusual choice in a lot of ways. But I think, you know, it definitely adds more drama to this side of the track. I mean, you've got this deep, passionate playing going on, and then you've got this like almost giving up on that kind of thing that happens when we get that. So yeah, powerful stuff. Anyway, what's the last 14 seconds like? Maybe fading out. Little warping of the sound, going into a tunnel and fading away. Yeah, so there's deliberacy to this production, which is really, it adds a lot of interest to the mix, because on the previous track I was sort of keen to say that there were things that were wrong with the production, but clearly whoever's done this has had intentions in mind with that stuff. So let's then go on from this point, assuming that this blown out, like patchy, sudden increases in volume stuff is deliberate, rather than just a misfortune of having not a very good guy in charge of it. Cool though, isn't it? It's really, really fun stuff. I'm going to just turn that up slightly. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me, Joe? Alright, fine. Maybe I'll move this closer to... Hi. Okay, so let's do another one. We'll have to probably leave it after this one. Newtondale Blue John. Although, is this a shorty? No. It's not. Okay. Just before I go on to here, I guess the things we heard in the previous one, all the instruments we had heard before, so nothing shocking there, but we definitely got a different value to the violins. The violins were really center stage in a lot of that, and even when they weren't, they were providing a lot of the interest. The main melody was sung by Jim Ghedi in the middle, and that's fine, but that only offers you two main sections of the same material with one extra bit added on the end, whereas the large proportion of that is instrumentally led and not focused on that main melody, which has this extra space after it finishes as well. There's so much more space where things happen and are unpredictable that make the main, quite predictable melody, you know, not the mainstay, not the main thing that you're interested in. You're interested in all those nuances, at least I am. Anyway, Newtondale / Blue John. Are we going to get a beat switch? Let's see. So we've got the violins again. We've got a low frequency. It's a G this time, so it's not as low as normal. And we're up high with that violin. It sounds like we're doing this kind of thing. An interesting way to play a violin, with, you know, striking the note a few different times rather than keeping the long note. Maybe this is audio manipulation, because we're definitely not hearing just the straightforward sound of a violin here. It might have a bit of delay on it, or it might just be oddly manipulated in this kind of place. Maybe there's a filter sweep or something happening on it. Anyway, it's quite an unusual, quite an electronic sound, so not like the first track at all, and a little like the end of the previous track. So maybe we're actually flowing into a new sound for the album here. As well as the specific notes, all these notes. We've also got this kind of sort of rhythm going on in the background too, but this is much more of a sound collage than it is a sensible environment. Getting sort of glimmers of a key. Sort of looks like G minor. Okay, and quite a lot of fade out there, leaving just this main G there, going from one violin. And even that then fades out as the main bulk of the song starts, presumably. That's quite nice. Mood setting, disturbing intro, and then something more conventional. Yeah. I'm not going to pretend like I took in all that melody and can play it straightforwardly the first time, so we're going to have another listen. But there's basically two main bits. They're very similar to each other, but they have a different bass line and also a slight difference in melody. So let's have another listen. Great. There's also a little discrepancy between the guitar melody and the violin melody, but this is basically the first bit. Is it? Let's go one more time. Yeah. Yeah, so the main difference is that end one goes up after the third part instead of down, I think. Let's hear it one more time. No, it's not. They're almost the same. It comes down like that. Yeah, and then it goes. So it has this slightly faster ending, and then comes down rather than dum, kind of does both. Yeah. So instead of it's really similar, really similar. But that one finishes very specifically on the G, which is our sort of tone note. So you could say these two phrases are a question and answer. That's the question. It does still end on the G, but very quickly before moving on to the D, which is more of our question dominant note, I suppose. Not that I exactly agree with this kind of way of thinking about things, but it sets up an expectation in anyone who knows this kind of music that at the end of the next repetition of it, we're going to end on the tonic, which we do. So it's built very straightforwardly, very classically, old style of composition, this. And also very straight, which the other ones haven't been. Not so much open space, but maybe there'll be a little at the end here. Nope, just straight on again. Yeah, one slight difference as well is the bass, which is mainly around G, just for ease. Bring that G down there. Yeah, so we go to the 4 there, which in G would be a C. And then we go back to the G the first time. And then the second time, we go back to the C, and then we go to the A, and we only get back to the G right at the end. So we get this different feel because the bass note is different. Not exactly what we would expect if we were talking about real, true, like pioneering classical composition there. We would get 4 to 5. But this time we get 2, which may be slightly darker, slightly less less of a conventional way of doing things. I don't know. It's hard to know whether this is deliberately trying to do something new, or whether this is something that would really have sat sensibly in an earlier time, in like the 1500s. It's hard to tell, but whatever. It's the folk we've got now, and yeah, it works in a slightly unusual way. Moving on. Yeah, so here we're getting a slightly simpler guitar part, where it's focusing really on just keeping that G going in the bass, while we get this slightly more complicated melody over the top, which has a lot more moving to it. Yeah, sorry, I played the 6 in there, the Dorian 6. I don't think we've heard a 6 in this so far. So that particular interval could be the minor, or it could be Dorian. But if we don't declare it, it occupies this sort of quantum space where it's neither of them really. It's not implied. You could say it's implied by the second, but you're basically wrong, because then each of these notes implies a fifth. And all of those would work in the key, but the one from the 6th wouldn't. So I don't know how much we can take from that. Regardless, anyway, something minor or Dorian, Aeolian or Dorian, Aeolian or Dorian. So yeah, this is kind of our B section. We've had 2 A sections, and now we've got a B section. And then we've got another. This is repeating the same material again. B. Yeah, so it is almost the same material, but instead of going up to that A and then having the slightly more impressive line going down, we finish with the same ending that the A sections finish with. So that's a nice way of tying things up after, you know, because they're very similar sections, they're all based over the G. This one doesn't even have any movement of that bass. So then when we get to that end, we can just tie it up with the same figure that we had in the previous ones. It's a cool idea though. Not sure how common it is, but it's definitely been done. But it's a nice thing to do anyway. Also, in case you hadn't noticed, violin and guitar are the only things going on here, and they're both playing an octave displaced from each other. Or they were, and now we're getting a guitar-only version with violin suddenly shifted over to the other headphone and playing offbeat chords. Yeah, it's just playing double stops. Those ones, G and D. So open strings, jang, jang. Okay, and there we got a little bit of a counter melody then with the main melody, which would go dum dum dum, and then that takes over at the end, which is nice. So these are two A sections otherwise, aren't they? Slightly different treatment, but still the same material. Okay, and so now are we going to get to B sections again? The violin has suddenly shot up the fretboard, or the fingerboard, sorry. And what I haven't mentioned, we've got a lot of those hammer-ons again, those grace notes. So it's not just, it's probably not that. So we've got those kind of things happening, and then when we go up to the 2 there, we get the same kind of thing. Few double stops. Oh, actually, is it actually? I think it's that. So it's actually a higher grace note coming down. Same kind of deal, but with a different feel compared to. Right, similar but different. Hard to describe exactly what the meaning of either of those is. You feel it, don't you? You feel it. And rallentando. Okay. Rallentando. Slow down before the end of the section, or before the end of the song. That's Newtondale, no doubt. And now, Blue John. We're in a different tempo. We're still in the same key, thank God, but we are definitely in a different feel here. So we were going dum da da dum da da dum dum dum. That was our kind of feel in the previous bit. Yeah, so a lot faster. Let's just check the tempo of both of those sections. Why not? Why not? Why not? Why not? Indeed. Let me just get up the old faithful tap tempo.io. Here we go. So a little bit further, yeah, we are a little bit further in. Here's Newtondale's tempo. And given that this, oh, hang on, let's go again. Yeah. Okay, given that this is probably acoustically performed, therefore not to a click, we're looking at something like 76. And then something like 105. Yeah, so that's a big change big change. If we're going, that's a whole lot faster. And yeah, is it now in triplets? Yes, it is. They're quite subtle, because it's not. It's but it's still got that jaunty feel. So we've got those triplet semiquavers, or a swung semiquavers even. Yeah, this is actually a very similar melody to the B section. Let's just go into what the actual differences are. So come up soon. Yeah. That's our first bit there. No. Is it that? Let's hear it one more time. Yes, with just a kind of on a different string. You don't need to do it though that way. Okay, and now we're sliding up the octave. Yeah, fun slides. So can I remember that? Yeah. No, my memory. Yeah. Okay. No. Right. Okay. Very similar to the first bit here. And yeah, okay. So then we get the same thing again. Oh, there is actually a sixth there in the double stop. Just for a moment there we get that E of the Dorian E. Okay, so now we're moving into the next section and we're looking at the similarities and differences. Okay, so we're already using the same kind of notes. We've got a slightly different rhythm because of the swung nature of the quavers, semiquavers. We've got a sort of emphasis on that higher note, that A up there. Yeah, and there again we get the sixth, and then we get it this scale down. So they're still in the same mode, even same key, same mode, same tonic as well. Yeah. But here, that sixth, it doesn't sound quite that high either. More like that. I'm not aware of a folk sixth, but there may well be one, because yeah, but things, how they occur on a fretted instrument, are slightly too high or slightly too low a lot of the time. Yeah, so the difference then, main difference here, other than the speed, the main difference in the melody is that we've got that that sixth as actually part of it rather than in the double stop from the violin. So now they've sort of swapped roles, the violin and the guitar, from the previous A and B go along, because in those A sections in the second time round, the guitar was playing the melody and the violin was playing the backbeat, that kind of thing. Right, just like a classical reggae track, really. And now it's switched, so the guitar is doing the chords, not quite with that kind of feel either. It's not an umpar, but it's got that backbeat, ja 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 ja, which is fun. Really up tempo, exciting feel, while the melody goes on top of that in the violin. Also, I think it's like double tracked. It sounds like there's another violin trying to keep up with the first one. Okay, so here's a little bit of a B section after repeating that first section a couple of times, maybe 3 times. There's another chordal thing as well, and I think it is actually the violin. I doubt there's a violin doing the chords while playing the melody. I think that's unlikely, but maybe there's an extra violin track that's doing that. Although it could be electric guitar actually fading in. We've got a bit of percussion come in as well, haven't we? Enjoyable how this sort of emphasizes that offbeat. Even the drums, when we get that, the melody comes in there, dum da, on the offbeat, and the guitar, yeah, there we get it, boom, da, and the drum, boom, comes down, boom, doesn't come in the next bar, but yeah, it really emphasizes that change of chord. Great fun. Yeah, something that I feel is true of a lot of folk melodies is that they don't have the same closure that classically written melodies do, or even pop melodies. You know, you'll have da 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 da, and then instead of ba da 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 being the end of the phrase, it's ba da 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 da. We're straight back into the next phrase, and the next phrase might end da 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 da, and then it'll just go into the next thing. It's really fun and means that there's no clear moment of finish before suddenly we've started again. We weren't expecting to start again. It's fun, keeps everything going and keeps everything ultimately exciting. We do have a few examples here of where it does end, like that da da ba da da ba ba, really is a definitive end, coming back to the first note of the scale, da da ba, finished. But it's only finished for like a beat before it then moves on again. So is it really finished? I don't know. It's a fun way of suddenly tying it up, and it's like, okay, all right, done. Okay, let's move on. This section doesn't do that nearly as much. Oh, we've got a rumble, really low rumble. Sounds a little out of tune with everything else, don't you think? Maybe that's the cello, but if it is, it's been tuned. I don't think it's that G, I think it's the lower G. It might be that G, but it's really having some creepy fare with bending. Yeah, it keeps coming in. So we get that kick. Boom. 2, 3, 4. Very horrible. It's not in key. You know, the G is our root note, but moving that root note, especially in the low frequencies, desettles everything else and makes this real agonizing difference between the high jaunty melody and this oppressive nastiness in the low range. Drums giving a little bit more there, bum 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 bum, just to those chord changes again. Yeah, so that. I guess it does end on a G, but it doesn't quite feel as finished as when we come down to that lower octave, does it? So there's two forms of closure, I guess. Oh, and now we are actually totally in that lower octave, but playing the same A melody. Slightly improvisedly different there, I think. We didn't quite follow the same melody. We went a little higher, because really the violin was capping out at the A, I think, in the previous section. I don't vouch for myself there. Let's listen to it one more time. There's the A. Yeah. Yeah, so it's not getting up past that A. It gets to it a few times. And then in this section, I think we go past it. Yeah, so there's this kind of which goes up to the B flat there. Maybe just the player didn't feel like putting that in the higher bits, or maybe it's just a lot easier to play that with that open string, with that G there. I would ask my wife, who plays violin here, but she would have to put on the headphones and know what I'm talking about, so I'm not going to, and I'll discuss it with her later, and maybe I'll let you know. There's our B section again, which really just repeats. You kind of have two sections within it. Oh, up to the top octave again. Now, this is the same, but as well as the thing in the cello, we've got just this atmosphere overtaking here. Again, a notable production trick that is really strange and uncomfortable. Before, it all felt very clean, if slightly blown out at times. Now everything is sort of fading in a black and white kind of way. I guess again, a really well chosen bloody cover to this album, but we are going more towards the downtrodden man in the middle now, rather than the expressive red light. We can hear, it almost sounds like a choir in the background now. Maybe it is. Just adding in these two extra notes, making it a very beautiful G major that we end that on, rather than any kind of G power chord. Most of the instruments that we're playing normally are just giving us those notes, but maybe they thought it sounded a little hollow or something like that. Here we've got added in beautiful B, just to guide us out in a glorious way, really. Yeah. Okay. So So kind of covered 3 songs there, but really only covered 2. This is going to take a while, this album, it seems, but I'm really enjoying myself. That is, show my absolute mess in the corner instead. Oh, hooray! Some lovely music there, very old folksy, but then with a really, I don't know, is it a modern sensibility or is it just a unique sensibility of this particular individual? Whatever it is, I like it and I hope you do too. We will be carrying on at this rate. Will take forever to get through this album, but I am going to aim to do an extra hour a week covering